Today on thetruthaboutcars.com, we're taking a look at the 2015 Honda CR-V. This has been the recently refreshed CR-V. It's not an all-new model. The 2014 model year and the 2015 model year are relatively similar, but Honda has made some significant changes under the hood and on the inside. In addition to the tweaked front end you're taking a look at right there, we have a brand new 2.4-liter four-cylinder engine under the hood. It produces 185 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. It's very similar to the engine and the transmission that you'll find in the Honda Accord. It is a CVT under the hood, it's not a stepped transmission anymore. I know most of you complain about CVTs frequently, but Honda CVT really is a little bit different. I'm not exactly clear what they've done to make this CVT behave the way that they do, but this CVT can change ratios from a high ratio to a low ratio, or from a low ratio to a high ratio, much more quickly than the Nissan CVTs can. So this doesn't feel at all like the Nissan CVTs that it competes with in this segment. The reason Honda put a CVT under this hood is fuel economy, because this will get you 28 miles per gallon on average in the EPA cycle with the CVT and all-wheel drive. Because this was a refresh and not a complete redesign, we have the same sort of styling going on the side. That means we have this high roof line and this window line that drops towards the rear, trying to give the CR-V more of a sporty appearance. It does limit rearward visibility, but because of this high roof and this really vertical rear hatch, we actually get increased cargo practicality versus some of those swoopier options in this segment. Honda has refreshed the front end to bring it a little bit more in line with the rest of the Honda lineup. Although we don't have LED or HID headlamps available in any trim level of the CR-V, we do have a radar sensor right here behind the Honda logo on the front end. That's because we now have an adaptive radar cruise control system and collision mitigating braking system in the CR-V Touring that we're taking a look at right here. This system has essentially been brought down market from the Acura brand, and it behaves very, very similarly. This is not a full speed range radar cruise control system. It will stop right around 15 miles an hour or so, letting you to brake from 15 to 0 all by yourself. It does, however, have the collision mitigating system associated with it, so at highway speeds this vehicle will attempt to brake you if it thinks that a collision is imminent to try and reduce the severity of the accident. It won't prevent it like Volvo's city safety systems, it'll just try and reduce the impact. Bundled with those systems, we also have an aggressive lane keeping system which actually steers you back in the lane. On the inside, the 2015 refresh brings us a slight change to the driver's seat. It's just about as comfortable as it was before, which places this towards the top end of this segment. I found the aggressive lumbar support to be very comfortable for my back. If you don't like lumbar support, you may want to sit in these seats for a while to make sure they're okay for you. Instead of the Honda Accord's two-screen infotainment system, we have the two-screen infotainment system from the Honda Civic. So we have a very similar radio layout, although we don't get the touch buttons. We do get physical buttons on the left side of that head unit, and then we get that single display nestled higher up in the dashboard. Honda's family-friendly focus can be seen in the rear of the CR-V, because this rear bench seat has 3 sets of latch anchors, both for the outboard seating positions as well as for this center seat. That's very unusual in the United States because only 2 are federally required. In addition to those latch anchors, the seat bottom cushion is also a little bit closer to the floor than you'll find in many of the competitors, making it more comfortable for children, but also less comfortable for adults, so keep that in mind. The rear seats easily flip and fold with one mechanism that also releases the rear seat back. It folds almost completely flat, but not flat with the rear cargo compartment. Speaking of cargo, you'll find 33% more cargo space in the back of the CR-V than in the Jeep Cherokee. That's because this does not have an off-roading mission in mind, and the Cherokee, as a result of its approach and departure angles, specifically the departure angle, we get a much taller load floor in the back. This is a much lower load floor. It makes putting large, heavy items easy in the back. You'll also notice that this 24-inch and 26-inch roller bag can stack up right there under the tonneau cover. I can also put this 24-inch roller bag vertically right there on the tonneau cover. That's not something you can do in the Cherokee. Like many crossover vehicles, this large hatch does have a downside, however, and that is that you can easily bop your head on it if you're 6 feet tall or taller. The CR-V is more of an on-road focused crossover like the Mazda CX-5, not an off-road focused crossover like the Jeep Cherokee. Like most CVTs, there is a little bit of a performance penalty in the 0 to 30 time. 0 to 30 ranging in at 3.2 seconds in my testing. That's a little bit slower than you'll find most of the traditional automatics in this segment. However, the CVT has a definite benefit when it comes to the 0 to 60 time, which came in at 7.78 seconds, which is a little bit quicker than most of the other naturally aspirated options. That relatively quick 0 to 60 time is due to this CVT being able to keep the engine at its optimum power band, especially when you're over about 40 miles an hour or so. The low ride height contributes to the excellent handling we get in the CR-V. This is not the same level as the Mazda CX-5, but it's not that far off. This definitely feels less wallowy, less soft out on the road than something like the Cherokee or the Subaru Forester. For some reason, pretty much everybody shopping in this compact crossover segment wants me to compare everything to the Subaru Forester. I don't think the Subaru Forester is the best comparison for the CR-V because the Forester really is very inexpensive starting compared to this vehicle. The Subaru has standard all-wheel drive, and as a result, they had to cut corners on the interior that you just don't find in the CR-V. The Forester's cabin also isn't as quiet. The CVT doesn't shift as rapidly as this CVT. It's a little bit slower off the line, and the interior is definitely a notch below this. Aside from wishing that every car started with at least 300 horsepower under the hood, I find little to complain about when it comes to the CR-V. The transmission shifts very rapidly, which helps the car feel more sprightly. The throttle is also mapped relatively aggressively, again to make this car feel a little bit faster than it really is. Some people dislike the way CVTs behave, but this is definitely the way this segment is going. It also has a serious impact on fuel economy. I've been averaging 26.6 miles per gallon, which is very good over about 560 miles of very mixed driving. That fuel economy figure places this above the Nissan Rogue, definitely above the Cherokee or the Subaru Forester. This places it almost the same as the front-wheel drive CX-5 that I last drove. To help improve efficiency, Honda offset the cylinders from the camshaft by 8 millimeters. That does cause some vibrations at certain engine speeds. It's most noticeable in slow driving, like in these city streets that we're on right here when you're going about 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, and the engine is barely spinning above idle. You do get a little bit more vibration than you did in the old CR-V. Now, Honda's attempted to cancel out most of that vibration in this engine, but it is still there. Interestingly enough, I didn't notice that same problem in the Honda Accord with the 4-cylinder engine and the CVT, even though it's essentially the same engine. The downside to the low ride height in the CR-V obviously would be limited off-road performance. We only have 6.4 to 6.8 inches of ground clearance, which isn't a whole lot. Rearward visibility in the CR-V is a little bit of a problem, as you can see right behind me in the camera. That's because of the overall profile of this vehicle. It definitely is not quite as good in terms of rearward visibility as the Forester because of that boxy look. However, Honda solves some of that with their lane watch system. They give you a little camera on that side view mirror right there on my right side that displays it on the 7-inch infotainment screen so I can see what's in my blind spot. It also gives you lines so that we can see how far those cars are behind you. Honda prefers trim levels to standalone options, and that makes pricing for the 2015 CR-V very easy. Things start out at $23,445 for the LX model in front-wheel drive. All-wheel drive adds $1,250 across the lineup. I think the best value comes in the EX at $25,545 and the EXL, which is basically just an EX with leather and a few other options. The prime reason for that is that the EX model gets you the 7-inch LCD infotainment system, power driver seat, keyless go, backup camera, and a number of other options that I really appreciate in this segment. The 7-inch infotainment system that you find in the EX and above models allow you to use a smartphone for navigation. It's not your typical app like you'll find in Bringo and Chevy models. This model actually uses your smartphone to generate the video and display it on the touchscreen, and then the touchscreen actually sends those signals right back to your smartphone so you can control it from the head unit. This is not the video output technology that Apple and Google have been bandying about lately. This is a completely different technology. We're told by Honda that they will support those latest standards at some point, but this model doesn't support them at the moment. The CR-V is the kind of vehicle that Honda does very well. At the base trim level, it's not quite as attractive as some of those other options, but in the mid-range trim levels, this gives you great value, excellent reliability, and decent performance with a wide range of features that you don't find in some of the competition. The top-end touring model isn't quite as exciting as some of the competition because the meat of this segment really is where the CR-V plays in. You won't find top-end luxury features in the CR-V, you won't find rock-crawling features like you'll find in the Jeep Cherokee, but that's not really what the CR-V's mission is about. Instead, what the CR-V gives you is a very comfortable interior. It's attractive. I think it will age incredibly well. It looks like it will wear incredibly well also. We also get handling and performance that are towards the top end of this segment. They're not tops like the Mazda CX-5, but they're definitely up there in this segment. Last but not least, the CR-V gives us excellent fuel economy. This beats the Nissan Rogue by about 2 miles per gallon. It even beats the Jeep Cherokee's 9-speed automatic transmission on the highway by about 3 miles per gallon, even with that 4-cylinder engine in the Jeep. All things considered, the CR-V should definitely be on your shopping list if you're shopping in this segment. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes with thetruthaboutcars.com. This has been the 2015 Honda CR-V. Go ahead and check out thetruthaboutcars.com for news, reviews, and more. You can also find us over at Facebook and over at Twitter, and I'll see you next week.